Ok, ¿qué tal? Soy Miguel Gómez, consejero financiero. Bienvenidos a otro episodio de Dinero en Español. Estoy muy contento, muy contento de tener el día de hoy conmigo a Frank Carbajal. Frank Carbajal es fundador y presidente de Tiempo. Es fundador también del Silicon Valley Latino Leadership Summit y es autor del libro Building the Latino Future, Success Stories for the Next Generation. Es una colección de historias de éxito de latinos prominentes en Estados Unidos y es un libro que te habla sobre tú como latino qué puedes hacer para tener un éxito espectacular. Y aparte del Summit, reúne a los mejores y los más brillantes para tener discusiones acerca de emprendedurismo, política, administración, etcétera. Y Tiempo es la compañía que une todo esto, que busca a los speakers cada año. Es un evento que habla para latinos en desarrollo. Y bueno, pues que Frank formó parte de la red de speakers de Ken Blanchard. Fue miembro de la Federación de Coaching de Silicon Valley. Frank vive en California y asesora a muchas empresas también acerca de temas de diversidad e inclusión. Tiene una maestría en administración con énfasis en administración de recursos humanos. Frank, bueno, esta plática va a ser parte en inglés, parte en español. Vamos a hablar sobre muchos temas que espero que te guste y que sea muy útil. Frank, bienvenido.
Gracias, Miguel. Gracias por la invitación. Yo estoy aquí en Santa Clara, California, pero ¿sí me puedes oír bien? Sí. Sí, llegué a Santa Clara cuando tenía unos 3 años. Mis padres, mi papá Regino Carbajal y mi mamá Hermelinda Carbajal, no hace mucho tiempo que se fallecieron los dos. Mi papá hace 3 años y mi mamá hace 6 meses que se falleció. El día favorito de ella, gracias a el 12 de diciembre, la fiesta de Nuestra Virgen. Y ese es el día que se falleció mi mamá. Bien, persona católica y con fe, tenían el fe a llegar a este valle de Silicon Valley. Pero antes que era el Silicon Valley, se conoció el nombre como Santa Clara Valle, el Valle de Santa Clara. Antes de todas las tecnologías, compañías, empresas de personas que tenían esta visión. Pero mis padres tenían las ganas para una mejor vida para sus hijos. Y yo soy el más joven de 5. Tengo 3 hermanas y un hermano. Y mis padres empezaron a trabajar en un programa que se llama el Trazando Program, y era durante el tiempo que era muy ambicioso para unas personas de México para llegar aquí a los Estados Unidos a trabajar como inmigrantes de campesinos. Y mis padres, era bien difícil trabajo, pero en 1970, mi papá habló con su compadre de San José, y su compadre, que es padrino mío, se llama Vicente, dijo: hey, Regino, puedes llegar aquí en San José y trabajar en una canería. Una canería, Miguel, es como nosotros trabajando con un IBM o un Apple. Es una cosa que puede ayudar a los latinos que durante ese tiempo eran campesinos, porque están trabajando para una compañía y tienen beneficios y todo, que es como un sueño, ¿verdad? Y mi mamá también le ofrecieron un trabajo que se llama Del Monte Cannery. Y es todos los cans, ¿verdad? De fruta. Uh-huh. Y cuando llegaron en 1972, por allí, llegaron en un barrio en East San José, Y cuando llegaron, mi papá tenía mucha ambición para comprar una casa y compró una casa en una área donde yo me crié con muchos chavalitos mexicanos, muchos de el estado de Michoacán y otros del estado de Jalisco. Y en ese barrio era como viviendo en un pueblito mexicano, ¿verdad? Y como todos los mercados mexicanos y era hasta cuando llegué en la escuela, la primaria, en el kinder, llegué a ver que hay personas que no son nomás latinos, raza americana. Y mi nombre, Miguel, de nacimiento es Francisco Javier Carbajal.
Okay.
Pero durante esa época, como se dice en inglés, anglicize. Anglicize es cambiar el nombre. Y la maestra era americana. Le dijo a mi mamá, mira, en inglés, el nombre de su hijo es difícil para pronunciar. Francisco es un poco más difícil. Le puedo llamar Frankie. Y mi mamá, como sabes, respeto para maestros es como doctores, ¿verdad? Cuando una persona llega a los Estados Unidos. Y mi mamá dijo, sí, claro, eres la patrona, la jefa de la clase. Y me hablaron a Frankie desde kinder, el primer grado, hasta que llegué al grado 7. Mi nombre se cambió a Frank. Y cuando yo vi, Miguel, todas estas cosas en mi barrio, nuestro barrio, y como yo digo en inglés, integrated school, cuando una persona como nosotros, mexicano o latino, llega a una escuela mezclada con otros que son raza blanca o raza hindú o asiático, nosotros vemos que las cosas para nuestra comunidad no es tan positivo. Y yo me acuerdo cuando estaba en el grado 6, yo siempre tenía percepción de nuestra comunidad. Yo era delivery boy para una newspaper route. Y siempre leía el papel y siempre el front page era cosas negativas de nuestra comunidad. Los latinos están en bandillas, son usando drogas, están early teen pregnancy, embarazados. Y cuando yo llegué en high school, era los deportes que cambió este espíritu dentro mío, porque yo tenía una persona, maestro y un coach de fútbol y también de correr, que dijo, eres una persona inteligente, Frank. Puedes llegar al colegio. Y nadie en mi familia nunca el experience de llegando al colegio era, como dicen, foreign. Y cuando yo llegué al colegio, las historias, la historia de nuestra comunidad, siempre lo mismo, Miguel. Las cosas de cuando yo era paperboy, la percepción, lo mismo. Y yo le dije a mi papá un día, después del colegio, después de la maestría, me acuerdo era el 1999, yo le dije, papá, quiero escribir un libro de personas que llegan de áreas humildes hasta éxito de negocios, de política, de Hollywood, como Edward James Olmos. Y mi papá dijo, pues mi hijo, ya es tiempo. Y así nació Es Tiempo.
Qué interesante.
Sí, gracias.
Qué interesante. Entonces, pues, hijo de inmigrantes, llegas a la escuela, a la maestría, te gradúas, escribiste el libro, ¿y luego qué pasó?
Y luego, buena pregunta, me encanta esta pregunta porque yo dije, ok, aquí te enseño mi libro.
Sí.
Sí, tengo el libro, el Building Latino Future, ¿verdad? Y cuando dije, pues tengo el libro, ¿qué puedo hacer con el libro? Y tengo una persona que es abogado de Es Tiempo, pero él dijo, Frank, tienes un libro, pero para proteger tu libro y tus derechos para public speaking, debes organizar un LLC. Y mi abogado empezó el LLC y Es Tiempo empezó como un negocio de LLC en 2007.
Ok, muy bien.
Sí.
Y luego empezó Es Tiempo y luego después empezaste con el Silicon Valley Summit.
Sí.
¿Sí?
Sí.
¿Cuál es el propósito?
Sí, claro. Esto te voy a decir en inglés porque es algo bien interesante. Okay, in 2008, my book, Building the Latino Future, Success Stories for the Next Generation, was published by Wiley & Sons. And in 2008, as we all know, here in the U.S., there was a market crash. And there was a devastating time where, just as today under COVID-19, we had to pivot. And so my pivot was to look at a person in my book who I really felt I could talk to about what should I do in terms of keeping the momentum going of book sales. Because honestly, the book had only been out 6 months after this thought process. And the person I went to was an executive mentor and friend. His name's Dick Gonzalez. And at the time, he was an executive at Safeway North America, which Safeway is a huge grocery chain throughout the United States. And he says, you know, Frank, one thing that you could look at is creating a summit, un cumbre, where people who aren't going to purchase your book, because at that time, Miguel, you know, Jeff Bezos started swallowing up all the Border books and all the Barnes & Noble, and books were going through Amazon. And he's like, you know, if people don't purchase your book on Amazon, then you could have a leadership summit, an all-day event where folks could meet, have access to these thought leaders, have access to meet in person, and be inspired by their talk. And I said, so you're saying like creating not only a platform, but panels and keynote speakers and an awardee? And he's like, yes. So the first summit was born in 2010 in the area on Sand Hill Road, known as the Quandras Conference Center. And the capacity there is 150. And so it was a huge undertaking because I thought, well, you know, I'm going to put myself out there and hopefully 150 people register. And thankfully, 2 right away became sponsors. So they provided 20 of their members to attend the summit. So I had 2 sponsors and 2 sold out tables. And then from there, it picked up momentum, and 150 people showed up for the first leadership summit on Sand Hill Road in 2010. And there was a person by the name of Michael Lopez who approached me after the summit. And he says, you know, Frank, in 2011, think of having your summit at a bigger venue, and I'll be a partner at Stanford. And so in 2011 to just last year, 2019, which celebrated the 10th anniversary, the summits have always and fortunately been sold out. And then with 2020, of course, what was interesting, Miguel, is that by early February, it was already 80% sold out for May of 2020. Yeah. And all of a sudden, we start hearing news about, you know, more cases, right? Seattle. And then the first case was potentially here in Santa Clara, Silicon Valley. And with that, my wife, who works in public health, she's like, you know, we got to pivot again, and you're going to have to contact the Computer History Museum, which is even a bigger venue than Stanford Faculty Club. And I said, you know, with what's going on, could we postpone the summit to August this summer, which is next month of 2020? And she's like, sure. And then just about a month and a half ago, I said, this thing's not going to go away anytime soon. So I ended up postponing to 2021. And the summit now for 2021 would be the 11th annual. But as you know, Miguel, I'm just, playing day to day, to see what happens for 2021. And with that being said, I had to pivot again to keep my folks and my current speakers on the 2020 summit panel and keynote speaker and closing keynote and awardees engaged. So they're speakers on a podcast that I host on Fridays, which is titled Es Tiempo with Frank. A, speakers; B, sponsors; C, partners; and D, collaborators. So I really feel in terms of accountability and a mission, it's important for me to keep our community engaged through this podcast. Es Tiempo with Frank.
Nice.
Thank you.
Very nice. I'll be sure to put a link to your podcast on the episode description and on the website once it goes up. Now, Silicon Valley is, of course, everybody knows all the biggest tech companies in the world are there. It's a huge source of employment and good salaries and good companies, a lot of competition going on. What will you tell someone that is interested in working in a Silicon Valley company, say a recent graduate from school that maybe is in Mexico, or someone that is interested in coming to this area? What would you tell them? Is it a good idea still, or what?
I think that's an excellent question. Lo digo en español y en inglés. Primeramente, una persona si vive en México o en Argentina o Chile o Centroamérica, El Salvador o Honduras, sí recibo mensajes, y yo digo que es muy importante para conectar con esa persona dentro de LinkedIn primeramente y enviar su resume, su CV. And with that, I think it's important to always build your network. But one of the things about building your network during these times, if a person from Mexico, Argentina, Chile, Central America, whether it's El Salvador or Honduras, not only building network, but understanding that one thing that's most important is building relationships. I think under COVID-19, take advantage of the digital connectivity of building a relationship that is sustainable. I think it's important not to press on the gas so fast and say, hi, my name is so-and-so, here's my CV, could you connect me? I've seen that before. And I think the mastery of really getting to know someone is being authentic. Being that you find certain things that you have in common with that person you're reaching out to. I'll give you an example, Miguel. One thing that folks may follow some of my posts, right? And one person in particular, he grabbed my heartstrings right away. I'm like, this guy is very perceptive, intuitive, and knows my passion. And my big passion is for football, for soccer. That's what was one of my survival skills in growing up in the barrio. And as I mentioned, a coach. And so I've been to a few World Cups. And so throughout the couple of years, I posted things that are of motivation. Like, for example, on a Motivation Monday. And just a few days ago, this young gentleman, he reached out to me and he says, I'm a student athlete at so-and-so college, I believe in Texas. And he said, in Southern California, in Los Angeles. And he said, and I really have a passion for helping our community. And I looked at his profile. I said, student athlete. And I said, oh, that's great. I said, what sport did you play? And he said, soccer. You too, right? And right away, he did, his research. And I think one thing that is important is when you identify someone make sure you have some things in common with that person, because you can't just throw a curveball and come out of the blue. I think it's really important. What I'm saying is there's two ways of going about it. There's A, with building the relationship, or B, yeah, you could take your chances, but I rather advise a person to go with A, to get to know someone, because it's not a good feeling when you send someone a message and all of a sudden they don't reciprocate. I, on the other hand, always return a person's request or message, but I think if they have a little more in common in terms of certain things, certain hobbies, then it really accelerates the communication.
Okay, good. Very interesting. And interestingly enough, I connected with you also through LinkedIn, and it is very interesting network, and the things you publish there. I see some of the things I want to overshare, because I want people to go to your profile and see what you do there. I think it's very interesting. I'll also put a link of it if you're okay with it. So, is it really working in Silicon Valley? Is it really as competitive as the media portrays it is? Is it really like a person kill person in mentality, and or how is it?
It really is competitive. I think one thing that I had mentioned about soccer is, what really provided me with grit was teamwork and working with a cultural, and I've mentioned this in a speech a couple of weeks ago, a cultural and diverse group of individuals early on. And I think what the Silicon Valley provides, Miguel, is they provide very competitive folks, but folks that are coming in from India or Asia or South Korea, and working as competitive as possible in terms of getting to the senior software engineering positions to executive management. And I think the mentorship is really where it drives an individual to succeed. But there are two forms of mentorship that will make you not only competitive, but shine in a room. And one is a mentor that is an executive sponsor type mentor. And what I mean by that is if you're Latino, a Latinx, and you, for example, are intimidated to do public speaking, then identify a Toastmasters in one of these big companies. Right around here where I live in Santa Clara, I'm part of a Toastmasters. It's Applied Materials. And I am an entrepreneur. I'm not in technology. But I'll tell you, when I'm in the room with these individuals that are technologists, they're very competitive. But what I understand in terms of competition is if you have your eye on the prize, you stay in your lane, you're unique, then you stand out. And so when people collide, and don't accelerate in a position or stand out, is when they're not being authentic and they're trying to show that they're the best for the job. I think as Latinos, we have more authenticity to offer because of various traits that we have within us. And so the Silicon Valley, to answer your question about Latinos in the Silicon Valley, we need to shine, for example. And I was just thinking about this, Miguel, a couple of days ago, and I'm glad you asked the question. I was thinking we need to shine in East San Jose. And the Silicon Valley, where I grew up in East San Jose, today I live in Santa Clara, but I'm a big advocate of East San Jose. We need, for a high-tech company, for example, to move to East San Jose so that East San Jose could be not known just as East San Jose, but known as the Silicon Valley. And it's interesting because I'll share a quick story with you. A couple of days ago, I get different messages on LinkedIn. And I know this is a following question in venture capital or an angel investor, or a person just saying, thank you for what you do with the Latino community. Well, this person who sent me a message was non-Latino. And they said, oh, that's great that you put up a statistic of Latinos going to college, right? It's fantastic. But I didn't know that there was many Latinos in San Jose, right? In the Silicon Valley. And I just thought about that. And I said, that's because San Jose, East San Jose, has never been in the same sentence as Silicon Valley. And that has to change. And so I'm very ignited, inspired by just this question alone, because I think, es tiempo for change. I'm always thinking of ways of elevating our community.
Great. And something that caught my attention when you were talking about all the immigrant community, Asian community, and all of that, they also have their set of traits very different to us. They have a different habits, different values, different. How do we complement each other? Us as Latino talent versus, yeah.
Es buena pregunta y en español hay una palabra bien profunda que es envidia. Envidia es es como una cosa que mata el espíritu de nuestra comunidad. So jealousy is the worst trait. There was an old theory that I would hear a lot about, Miguel, when I was first writing my book, and it was the crab theory. Mm-hmm. The crab theory is, you heard of it, where a Latino is trying to get up, and then all of a sudden, one's pulling down on the tail. Well, we have in my network a lot of friends that this person by the name of Andre, who would be a great interviewee on your podcast, he push up to pull up is one of his concepts that he believes in, which is really pulling each other up. And I think those things will change in our community. We have to replicate our comunidad in terms of cultural strategies. I say strategic leadership is key because we have culture, language, passion, and grit in place. But when it comes to accelerating and achieving greatness, it's also very, very important that that executive or that top-level entrepreneur or that person leading in Congress or a senator looks at the entire Latino community as the Asian community does. Like, was it Andrew Yang? Man, he was just amazing. He all of a sudden became the rock star of not only the campaign, but of the Asian community. And what he did is he always paid tribute to the Asian community in terms of his success. And so as Latinos, we have to do the same. We have to constantly remind ourselves that the reason we're accelerating, exceeding success is because within our community, we have support. So we need to have support, not pulling one another down.
That's something that I've discussed so many times with so many different people. This craft mentality is prevalent. And in Mexico, so much, here in the U.S. as well. Just so hard for me to understand why we tend to do those things. But it's great to have someone like you, people that are working to fight with that, not only stereotype, but with that reality that many times we just pull each other down just because we don't want the other succeeding, or we are afraid of the other succeeding and taking away something from us. I don't know what it is, but it's great that at least there's people that think differently about these things. And now moving along, something else. Part of what you do, and correct me if I'm wrong, part of what you do also has to do with venture capital. Is that right?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. So part of what I do is I'm an advisor to Angeles Investors Group, which is based out of Chicago. So in terms of venture capital, I'm the person that it's like a catalyst to look at this angel investment group that was formed by David Olivencia, Marcelo, and Adela, who have not only executive management experience, but startup experience. And what I do is I look at trying to identify banking institutions or institutions that could become members to invest in early stage entrepreneurs and startups.
Okay, so you're kind of looking for the bridge to capital,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
So you're
Yes.
So there's companies on one side, banks on the other, so you're in the middle, connecting each other. Okay.
Yes. That's yes.
Okay. So what part of these would be, well, identifying also not only banks but those on the other side, the companies, the startups.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard conflicting views on these. Some people say you should invest in the founder. Some people say you should invest in the idea. What's your take on this?
Excellent question. I think you should invest in the founder first and the idea. Why I say that is because it's like I like to look at it as a basketball team. Basketball team, I'm identifying versus an NFL team or a baseball team, because you could see more players on a basketball team versus an NFL team. You can't see an NFL team because there's, so many players on the defensive side, the offensive side, and the special team side. And then with Major League Baseball, same thing. You have over so many amount of players. But, however, on a basketball team, you could win a championship by two key players. If you look at my team, the Golden State Warriors, for example, Curry and Klay Thompson, they're hurt. They're out. But under this COVID-19, they're going to continue basketball in a bubble. And the team that may win it, it's either the Lakers or the Clippers, because they have two star players on each team. And it's just like a startup. If you have a founder that is a key player and a star, then you establish the relationship around that founder, as I mentioned earlier about building a relationship. And then you look at the idea, because one thing that investors look at, it's like a marriage. You're going into this relationship that is about your lifestyle as well. Because at the end of the day, the reflection goes back to the investor. The investor becomes a part of the board of directors for that company that he or she is funding. And so at the end of the day, I don't think an investor wants to spend a lot of his or her time arguing with that founder, that CEO, because then it becomes like a volatile, toxic relationship. And so investing in a founder, how I look at it with Angeles, for example, is identify and then connect and fund. But the identify part, it really is a due diligence. Identifying so many entrepreneurs out there isn't as easy as people make it sound to be. I mean, because there are many, many great ideas, but I think it's the person that really has not only the passion, but the authenticity to work as a team.
Okay. Now, there's a lot of, obviously, being in Silicon Valley, there's tech is all over the place, right? Technology and fintech and whatever. There's always technology. But is there an opportunity as well for companies develop, say, just a crazy example, an ice cream company or a low-tech company, something that is not that is not trying to reach 1 billion users in 3 years, for example, something that is probably more localized or less technologically dependent. Are there opportunities for that as well, or is it only about the tech right now?
Oh, no, I really enjoy that question, because there are so many different talented entrepreneurs that one person who's a friend of mine, who I would definitely be happy to introduce you to, is Mark Madrid, and he runs the L-Band program, and they have a board of directors that are seasoned executives, and and folks that have been in the industry to an iconic person who's the founder, Dr. Jerry Porras, who was a business professor at Stanford. And so that program at Stanford, what it is going back to your question, it's scaling business and scaling. For example, if it has to scale up, you would work with the entrepreneur to provide mentorship and ask the entrepreneur, do they really want to scale up to where they're going to outgrow their own mission? And if they're going to outgrow their own mission, are they losing, that child, if you will? Because, all these businesses, as you know, you treat them like your kids, right? Because it's part of you. It's part of who you are. And with that, some of the things that I've seen are going back to your question of companies that are non-tech. There's bakeries, for example, that go through the scaling program. There's construction. There's other forms that aren't just technology-driven ideas. So in the Silicon Valley, I think being authentic and looking at something that's unique is where it's at. It doesn't have to always be a person that falls into that motivational trap, if you will. Because if they do, then they're not going to either know how to scale or scale up. And all of a sudden, they're going to become a person with just big ideas. And an idea has to resonate and it has to stick. Okay.
Related to these, we've seen companies and startups, not to put on the spot or any particular founder, but just a couple of examples. We've seen Uber, we've seen WeWork, companies that are huge, but are still operating under losses. How can an investor justify putting money into them? You're thinking that they're going to be profitable at some point, or what's the reasoning behind those companies? Do you have any ideas, any insights on that?
That's a question where I'm with you. I don't understand how that happens. I mean, the Uber one is just something that's perplexing. I know that for example, with me, I'm always about a baseline and something that's measurable and some outcomes that are going to be an ROI. But with those, I would be fascinated to know the same answer. Because if you could interview someone from those companies, that would be awesome. Because I always think the same thing.
Good.
That's
good to see that there's
Facebook. It took a while too, right?
Yeah, but I mean, at least they had some path to profitability where selling ads and selling enough ads you make profits. But if every time you rent an Uber, you're losing money. I don't see how renting a million more. If you're just renting one, you're losing money. If you rent a million, you're still losing money. I don't understand. But anyway,
very interesting.
That's for another time and other people to talk about. Maybe they made great investments. Who knows? What do you think, or how do you think we could support young professionals coming into industry right now? So networking is one, mentorship is another that you already mentioned. But what other ways can we help younger professionals even younger Latino professionals to start with believing more in themselves, for example?
No, es buena pregunta. I think for me, personally, I would connect them with the founders that are Latinx young leaders. For example, a person by the name of Francis who runs an organization known as Tequeria. Tequeria brings a diverse group of Latinx technology, early professionals to her network, and virtually they have a continuum of events. And then there's another person by the name of Michael Urbina who works at Box. He's very involved, very finger on the pulse with diversity and inclusion, and he's more about the inclusive part, which is important. And I think for me, it's what you had mentioned earlier, like a bridge is so important to me, because I could map things out through the fact, Miguel, that I was thinking about this earlier today. I had a call and I'll keep you all updated on LinkedIn, but I had a call earlier today with a small group of dream team, I call them, for a documentary that we're going to be working on. And the documentary is on prominent Latinos that were either A, immigrants, or B, first, second, third generation Latinos. But we pay tribute on standing on the shoulders of immigrants. But the thing about what I was thinking was, on this call, how I was able to map things out was my biggest challenge was writing a book. Writing a book is so difficult in the sense that you have to be disciplined. You literally, cry sometimes at night and thinking, oh man, why am I doing this? But you have to do it because our stories must be shared and told. And so in terms of mapping and navigating, I think for me, it's a lot easier to be a provider of an identifier of connecting individuals to folks who are millennials and Generation Z individuals that could welcome folks to the Silicon Valley to apply for positions.
Okay, that's great. It's great. So think of it. I see it in, for example, I have a family member that she lives in Mexico, and her dreams. I'm not judging her dreams, but I feel that she has the capacity to do much more than what she's dreaming. So helping people dream bigger dreams, I think, is important. But how do you push them to do that? How do you invite them to think bigger, to believe more in themselves, and so on? Do you have any ideas on that?
I'm not trying to do a personal plug, but I invite him to the Silicon Valley Latino Leadership Summit. Okay. I tell you, Miguel, how I created the salsa. I don't like saying secret sauce, but el salsa picante is how I created that particular salsa for my summit, was to look at, as I mentioned with my book, Ken Blanchard, one of the top thought leaders. I don't know if you know this, but of the 20th century, for the past, 40 years and going into the 21st century, on Amazon, he was ranked top 5 thought leaders of all time. So he's a godfather of thought leadership. And when I attended, being fortunate to attend some of his events, I said, I need to create this type of atmosphere, this type of environment for nuestra comunidad. So we could be challenged. We could sit in a room all day and flex the muscle up here and not worry about going into a room. And nothing wrong with happy hours and a glass of vino or dos equis, but it was on the other side of the spectrum that we be challenged, right? And so for your relative in Mexico, one day when we're all under the same roof, I invite you to the summit and see that I identify some speakers that just hit home runs, right? That really challenge us to dream even bigger, because our dreams are within our own hands. And so that's what I would advise. Fantastic.
Frank, I'm going to be respectful of your time. How are we on time?
We have, let me see. We have 5 minutes.
Okay, very good. Yeah. So let's just close.
Let's take one more.
I think it was a fantastic last point you just made, but how can people find you? How can people reach you? How can people hear more from you?
Thank you. So I have a new landing page on my website, www.estiempo.com. And on the site, you could also scroll down and you could see my Estiempo with Frank podcast every Friday. So without going to any other links, you could go to a show on Friday, every Friday at 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 5 Central, 6 Eastern, and just hit, and you'll be live on listening to my show. And also within that page, you have my email, frank@estiempo, and my phone number, and also any inquiries that folks have. If they would like me to speak for their organization or do any type of leadership training, I'm all here for you all.
Okay. Frank, thank you so much. It's been such a wonderful conversation. I enjoyed very much.
I did too. Thank you so much.